it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater. Welcome back to another episode of Her Success Story. For those of you who have not listened before, welcome. We are focusing on the authors this January, and a guest today is Ramon Ray. Now, Ramon and I go back probably 7, 8, 9, could be 10 years in business, knowing each other in business. We've done business together in a variety of ways, but there's a couple of things I truly admire about Ramon. So for you to get to know Ramon, you're going to go to ramonray.com, which will all be in the notes at the bottom. Ramon is a global speaker. He's a best-selling author. He talks about pancakes, which cleaves him near and dear to my heart. He inspires big brands and is hired by big brands all over the country to come and speak for their companies. Why? Because he makes an impact, he has a message, and he's dedicated to his craft, which you're going to learn about. One of the funnest things I happen to giggle about is few people have been invited to the White House to present to the president's staff, testified to Congress, graduated from FBI Citizens Academy, or worked for the United Nations. Just a few things that Ramon has done. Today, Ramon is here as an author. Welcome, Ramon, my friend and long-term colleague.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, author to author. I really appreciate it, and happy to be on your podcast. All about what inspiring women can do and learn. And so I'm really happy to be part of that journey. So thank you so much.
So before we get into the whole author thing, share with everybody what got you started and what you do. Because the author is an extension of that. If we don't know the beginning pieces, we're not going to get the whole author piece.
And that is true. Very few authors, Stephen King, or I think he's the guy who writes the scary books and the Harry Potter lady, they make a living with what they do, but when people say I'm an author, you're usually doing 5 other things, so, but indeed, I mean, listen, I started out being a tech kind of a nerd, even as a kid, taking apart teddy bears that talk, wondering, how does this teddy bear work? Let me rip out the guts. Radio Shack, little radio kits, they have the wire, people kind of understand, you strip out the plastic with your mouth and expose the wire, you know what I mean? And put it inside the little spring to make a connection and have a ham radio. So that's kind of my early taste of technology. And
I'm sure you challenged your mothers a little bit.
I've shut once I remember my room, there was a big explosion, boom, in the socket, lights went out in the whole house. Now, it was an old house, like one of those 10 houses or whatever, the old houses in the Midwest. But so that's how that started, Ivy. And then from there, I'll skip really a stint at the United Nations. I just started that, Ivy, because I wanted a job. Somebody from my church said, Ramon, they hire secretaries, administrative clerks, the UN calls them. You're kind of a smart guy. Go get a job. So work there for a number of years. And while there, Ivy, is when the taste of, I discovered, as it were, the internet. Everybody has a different journey. Some people discover law. Some people discover pets. For me, it was discovering, quote unquote, the internet. Built websites, grew it, started a business, sold a business, speak to people. And today I'm talking to Ivy. I think I skipped a lot, but...
So the Ramon Ray brand is all about you as this global speaker, which if anybody has not seen Ramon on a stage, check out where he is and get your butt there, because he carries an audience in truly engages an audience that you're leaning forward in your seat with great content and a smile and an encouragement to learn. Because I'm not blowing smoke, but because here's the truth. I am not a tech person. So when you were finding the internet, I was running from a computer saying, no, I don't really need to get Slater Graphics, my old company, onto technology yet. No, somebody else will do it, the next generation. And so what you embraced, I resisted. And I have been at many a conference that you have run, whether it's conferences hosted by you, conferences you've run for other companies. And with tech not my sweet spot, I'm leaning forward in my seat because your delivery is so engaging and real that I'm ready to learn.
I appreciate it. If I may, Ivy, it's your show, but if I may just steal 10 seconds
Go for it.
Thank you. I am the technologist, but I lean forward also with Ivy and learn how to run my company. So, but thank you. But I just want to acknowledge your amazing expertise to all of us as well.
And that's why we're friends. So let's look at why a speaker, event producer is an author.
Sure.
What's this about? And share why you do it. And then we'll get into what's coming out in your next book.
Absolutely. So, and if you want, I can talk about, not to talk about some of the books I've written, they're old, nobody should ever buy them. I'm not selling anything here, but just to talk a bit about the journey. So for me, Ivy, I think, and I'll answer the question, a few things. One, I find a book, well-written book, is a publicity tool. It's a marketing tool. It's a credibility tool where it's me and John Doe, Ivy, and whoever it is next to her. And Ivy says, Ramon says, all things being equal, but I have a book. Again, with all things being equal, assuming the person doesn't know you and they just have to make a judgment call, that's going to win the end of the day, as it were, I find most times. So the book is really something that's credible. Seth Godin, I think, is a mutual admirer of ours, a friend of mine. I have a few books, people can't see it, but behind me, I bought a few of his own books. It's a calling card. We all have business cards, as it were, right? But I think a book is also something I can say, Ivy, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. Here's my book. Thanks, Ramon. So I think those are a few reasons. You could probably say it better than me, but credibility, it's a calling card. A book is something tactical that you can't be there maybe, but you can leave behind 100 books. You can leave behind 25 books. You can leave behind 10,000 books. So those are a few reasons why I think people who are experts as we are, a book is that next feather in the cap or tool in the toolbox that people might want to have.
So now that we're the first month of 2019, we're jumping into this new year. Why did you put your next book in your first quarter of this year? What is your strategy behind this? Give us a little bit of this insight.
Sure, absolutely. So for me, I guess for me, some people, their financial calendar is a little different, or they do things differently, but answer your question. I think because I want to kick it off so that if the book is coming out soon, in the next few weeks, as people are watching this and listening to this, for me, it's a good jumping point. Everybody has an ebb and a flow in their business, Ivy. So speaking to authors, I think to help authors here, for me, my biggest speaking comes from September to December, comes from March, April, May, June, that season-ish. Those are the two big halves of the speaking world and events. So for me, having a book that's coming out beginning of February, around this time period, it's a perfect opportunity to jump off. As I said, calling card, right? Now I have a big calling card. All the Ivies and important people who I'm trying to reach who are at these big companies, you already know Ramon. Now here's my book. So it'll be a good jumping off. Maybe we should hire him for our March event, our June event, our September event. So that's kind of one of the reasons. And I think overall brand, it's something to talk about throughout the year, because a good book, you can still use it into 6 months, 8 months, on TV, radio, and other things.
So I love what you're saying. This leads me to my next question. How long can you stand? So as a book being a piece of your platform, right? A launching point, the next piece in your brand. And with my own book coming out, again, in January, later this month, we looked at it as positioning, a turning point platform, part of a new website that's coming out, hopefully the first quarter. We put it in a timelined calendar. Now, so the question is, how long can you ride that? Like, how often do you have to have new material out? And how do you supplement being the author? Because you're the content king out there, Ramon.
Here's my unscientific answer. And it's funny, I had a call with my web developer yesterday about an issue on our website. And I'm using my gut. Hey, it looks this way, looks that way. We should change it. He says, Ramon, according to the analytics I've looked at for the last 12 months of your website, here's the facts. I'm like, okay, let me stop. But so I think for me, here's what I would say. 3 months, 4 months is a good way to ride it. You call up your average TV station, radio station, podcast with Ivy and say, Ivy, my book came out 2 months ago, or my book is coming out. That's newish enough to ride it on the book. Now taking 4 to 6 months, 7 months, people can still with credibility say Ramon has a new book, or Ramon just published a book, or Ivy just came out with a book, and that's enough, I think, to still ride the wave for an event like that. So I think to get the immediate press, you probably got to do that relatively quickly, and you should be planning it ahead of time. But to ride the wave of speaking and consulting, my last book, Ivy, was done, I don't know, my Facebook guidebook was done 10 years ago. Like, I tell people, don't buy it because it's outdated. So it's good to have a book that people are planning. And I think can you do a book once every 3 years? Everybody can't. But that's a nice fresh spin if that's part of your marketing plan.
So let me ask you this. For a man who I know who is like, what, you're in Texas or Austin, you travel enormously.
Yes.
Okay, you travel for business, you travel for your personal dedication, your church going, and you're always on some trip changing the world, which for me and the nonprofit girl, there's a lot of listeners, there's a lot of alignment between Ramon and I. There's a reason that, over a networking table 10 years ago, we have a relationship today. And there's a lesson there, people.
Yes.
How do you find time to write? How do you find time to get it done? How long in advance do you start? How do you do this?
That's a good question. I think there's 3 things. And again, I can't wait. Those listening to this, feel free, email me or use the discussion, however you're seeing this. Give me advice too, please. But here's what I do. I think 1, the travel time, Ivy, is an asset for me. 5 hours on a plane, what is it? 6 hours, 5.5, give or take, going from East Coast to West Coast, 3 hours or so going to the South, Houston or somewhere. I can type 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Maybe not 4,000. I think it's about 3,000 words I can type. So now, since it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart, a lot of it's in my head. So that's one part of the book. Just the stream of consciousness. I love big words, Ivy. You can help me say that.
Stream of consciousness.
Thank you. That word. See why
it takes a team. It takes a village.
So because of that, I can type. So that's 1/3 of one part of the book. Second part, I think, is getting insights from others. Now, as my editor said, I don't want a book, Ramon's book, filled with Ivy's insights or filled with my friends, our mutual friends and colleagues' insights, but getting input from other people. Hey, this person, that person, this marketing person, my friend John Lawson, who's an expert in eBay selling. Hey, what are your 10 tips or insights? He can give me some material as well. Above board, no plagiarism, attributing to him. So that's a second way. Third, don't forget stats and research. And that you can do with your assistant, your VA, your executive assistant. Yeah. So there's many ways. I think the core of the book has to come from you, but there's charts and other things you can do over time. Jay Baer does this well in his books and others, that you can add stories and anecdotes. So for me, but finding the time, airplanes. And I think really, Ivy, scheduling it in. We're so busy, but if I put in, make burnt pancakes and bacon at 7 a.m., write the book at 8 a.m., it's going to get done.
It's so true. I was actually speaking to another speaker, a colleague, a couple of weeks ago, and we both said, I said, it kills me if I don't fly east to west coast in a month, because that 5-hour chunk, that 5+ hours of quiet work time is golden. Forget, the status of miles that we're always all looking for us business travelers. Bring it on. But the chunk of work, I recently, for my own book, is some holiday travel with my husband and my family. They know, don't talk to me. Yes. We take off. Don't talk to me. And it goes back to actually a year ago today that launched my new book that's coming out. That I got on a plane with my family and I was sitting next to both kids and they started playing cards and watching some movie together, which they put the same movie on at the same time and they watched the movie together and play cards. And my kids are adults. And I said, just give me a minute. I wanted to get some notes down and I'll join you in a bit. And I went into like a tunnel place and I wrote a brand new keynote that when I looked at said, I think it's time this year we're going to do a book.
Nice.
Based on that plane experience and the impact of having that special place that you can't be disturbed.
And Ivy, don't you cry and melt on the floor? I know I do. I literally melt, cry, and I'm like taking all my clothes off and going, they have to restrain me when I realize there's 1% left on my notebook. And I fly quite a bit. Sometimes you change your flight and I'm on the back seat where there's no power. 1% left on my notebook and I'm in a seat with no power. I'm like, it's not that bad, but when you plan to do something in those moments where you're like 5 hours, it's gone. So But anyway.
Yes, we've all been there. So share a little bit more about what you've seen of the impact of content and writing in general for your business.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, and talking to those who might be, as we talked offline, selling a more tactical product. They're not, we're in the information business, as it were.
Right. So a tactical product could be that both of us are sipping on water from a water bottle, or a tactical product of from our previous podcast at the end of the year on Christmas week was John's Crazy Socks. And I'm all about John's Crazy Socks right now. Okay. Exactly. So tactical product.
Right. So business selling a product, my point being, it's a different content's still very important, but I acknowledge you're probably going to do more ads and sales and et cetera, different type. But for those of you who are in the knowledge business, the professional services business, content is so important. And here's why. And that dovetails to books. So I think the power of content is that everybody, Ivy, is still looking, how can I better myself? How can I get the edge for the next day, for tomorrow? Everybody wants it. I follow people, you follow people. People watch your podcast, people listen to Dave Ramsey, whoever it may be. Everybody wants an edge in their business. And so this is the power of content. There's either people who want to be entertained. That's why I know you are, Ivy, looking at some funny cat video or laughing with your family. We do that. We want to be entertained and tickled, whatever that thing in the back of our head, whatever that fancy thing is. Or we want to learn. And so this is where you, and hopefully those listening to us and watching us today will do it. We want to learn. How can we get an edge? How can I grow my business? So Ramon's specialty is marketing, personal branding, and et cetera. So this is what I do. Feeding my community, feeding my tribe, my fan base. How can you leverage the power of marketing, grow your business? I'm not reaching millions of people. I can't reach everybody in the world, but I can build a community who likes how Ramon's saying it and what Ramon says. Going to the power of a book, Ivy, is an extension of that. A book is that asset, that tool that elevates you a bit. People sit up and take notice. I have a book out. People sit up. They take notice on that. So it is powerful, powerful, powerful.
So have there been surprises in this journey of building the Ramon Ray brand and being the expert on content consistently? I mean, you have videos out, you have written things out, you're doing a book every few years. What surprises have come your way in this journey?
I think one surprise, Ivy, has been that about that I don't have to have a large following, as it were. Sometimes in my head—
Be more specific about that, because people are like, oh, so I just need 10 people.
Absolutely. So, and I'll tell you, I'll open it up. Sometimes I look at, so I love Steve Harvey. That's my guy, my man crush.
I know he's your go-to guy. It's your man crush. It's okay. We all need a crush.
I just watched a video he posted, Ivy. What is it? 70,000 likes in 30 seconds. And I'm like, oh, man.
I'll take 7, right?
Or 70. We all know and like him. Seth Godin, he's not so much public online, but yet he's moving a lot of traffic.
Okay.
I don't know about you, Ivy, but I look at those and sometimes I'm like, wow. So what surprises me, Ivy, and I'm learning, I've known it for years, but you're going to see it more in 2019. Ramon has a following. Well, Ramon has people who like what Ramon does. It may not be the zillions of the people I've just mentioned, but he has a following. So to your point, and feel free to dig in deeper, numbers do matter to a degree. You want to be a life coach, and you have one person watching your YouTube video, and that's all, one person only watching anything you're doing. That's not so great. You got to work so hard and have some sustainable number of people, but you don't have to have an exponential number. Have the number that works for you, whether that's a few hundred, a few thousand, and what's the engagement, Ivy? Are people listening? Are they clicking? Are they replying and saying, we hate you or we like you? I don't care how the engagement is. So that's the surprising thing that I've learned, that I have something to offer and I have a following. And so with humility, I'm honored, and my determination is to keep growing it and keep being of value to them, if that makes sense.
No, it does 100%. And one thing that I'm loving that you said is it doesn't matter if they come back and engage that they like you or they don't like you. The matter is that they're engaged. And people who rebuttal, push your buttons and come back, and I'd love you to expand a little bit on this, but negative is not bad. It's an opinion. And how does that weigh in?
That's correct.
in your view. And what do you have to say on that one?
Absolutely. I'll give an example. It's not quite authors and books, but you can help steer it as you want. My event, you were at my last event. I do an event, an annual event with a few hundred people. My goal is to get to 500. I've had that a few years, 500. See, I'm talking about numbers, Ivy. See that thing in my head still talking. But point being is that
getting Ramon, just listeners, getting Ramon to actually think or talk about numbers, it tickles me pink.
Yes.
We could go into that later.
That'll be in the next show, the finance show, where I'll be listening only or asking questions. But the point being, Ivy, is that yes, critique. So many people, I ask people at the conference, how can it be better? I'll just be upfront. A few people said, Ramon, we should have had more time for networking. Kind of how I fed people didn't go quite right. I'll leave it at that. But there was a few mix-up and screw-ups on that. But I appreciated it because these weren't hateful people. Even if they were, it would have been okay. These weren't people, you suck, you're a loser. These are people, yourself and others, as it were, who care, who said, Ramon, here's how you can do better. Ivy, it's up to me now. I can take that feedback and do as best I can. It's not going to be perfect still next year or this year in 2019, but I can do better. So my point is I take the feedback to heart. How can I do better? Out of 10 comments, I may not be able to do all 10, but Ivy, can I work on 5? And can I prioritize? Maybe somebody was there who didn't bring a sweater, said it was too cold. Maybe he's the only guy who thought it was freezing, but that's okay. I'm glad he took the time to speak. And guess what, Ivy? One of my closest friends, Shashi Bellamkonda, it's called the Social Media Swami. You can look him up. He came to one of my first conferences because he found a typo. And in his thick accent, I'm saying it in respect. So I hope this is okay, Ivy. He's a friend. Ramon, if you scroll down on your website, you'll see it's a typo here. This doesn't look so good for your brand. I didn't know him. We're now best of friends. So
every piece of information is a piece of information and a piece of insight. So even if somebody's saying it's cold in the room, you can put out in the autoresponders as once you register, remember we have air conditioning, there will always be air conditioning in the room. If you get cold, it's always a good idea to bring a sweater, a wrap, or a jacket. You moderate your own temperature. So just that piece of insight and information gives you the ability to be more service-oriented to your tribe. Yes.
Ivy, that is so good. I didn't even think of that, but I love it. And that's a way to deal with it. So Ivy, thank you. Can I repeat that again real quick?
Absolutely.
You don't always have to change. Maybe you're not going to change, but I like your point to the cold sweater person or the cold person as an example. That's a great point. I don't have to say, I'm going to raise the heat. It's going to be the same, but everyone remember. So I love it. What a great, great point.
And what I hear, we both come from the place of what can I do?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Information is king. Responses is king. And that's why, listeners, tell us what you like. Tell us what you want more of on Her Success Story. Without the insight and information, we cannot deliver. We will go out, LinkedIn, tweet, any number of people and encourage them to listen and invite them on as guests. But we'd love to know what the guests are that have impacted you and why, because it's the information and the insight that give us the ability to deliver, both for myself and brands like myself and Ramon, to deliver insight to our tribes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's powerful. Absolutely.
So on a personal note, before we finish up today, how, you're a family man, you're a religious man, you have missions that are important to you, you're always on the go. How do you get in the quality of life, the family time, the time for the things that are important to you?
That's a great point. And if you ask my wife, she may say I don't. So, and I think that a colleague of mine, Jeff Mask, who used to work at a CRM company, automation company, said it best, that I don't know if I think he said there's any balance, it's harmony. So my kids at this point are older, so I'll talk about that briefly in the beginning. But when they were smaller kids, I had to make choices and decide how are things going to be. And while I still had to have a business and run it full tilt, I had to make sacrifices to that business. That's one. Now that they're older, things are a bit different. I can run it more full tilt, but guess what, Ivy? I bring them oftentimes into it. My son, as you may have seen at my last, he was working with me to a degree. My wife does some things. She's now entrepreneurial. So that's point 2. Bringing the family into it, I think, can help. Point 3, you remember, as I told a friend of mine who's getting his MBA now, life is about cycles. They know when November comes, December comes, daddy, husband's going to be full tilt in his conference. but they know that in February, maybe it's going to be lighter. We can go out on a cruise, hint, hint. So, that's really how I deal with it. And I think that as we are, you and me, Ivy, and people listening to us, we're business owners. I don't want to say that comes first to a degree, but in a way, those of us who the bread is on our shoulders, the hustle's on our shoulders, if you don't do that, you won't have a home. If you don't do that, you can't buy diapers. If you do that, your kid can't go to private school or public school. You get my point. So I'm not saying it tongue in cheek. So this gives you an excuse to hustle and ignore your family, but help your family understand Daddy's sending this invoice to a client today because remember he spoke last week and he was away 2 days. This is why we now can go here, if that makes sense and helps.
I love how you put it into the perspective of creating harmony. Because I'm also a person who doesn't believe in work-life balance per se. I think it's a cliche that kind of I could throw up from. Right. I believe there's work-life priorities. And as you're referring to harmony, I refer to priorities. And there's times that, we went away last month for my husband's birthday. I literally checked out for a couple of days, did not answer emails, worked on the plane both ways. But this was our time to be together.
Yes.
Life's busy. We're both business owners. We're both building and running and doing. This was our time, a time of celebration. And we both stopped and we put a boundary around it. Mm-hmm. So I love how you put it as harmony. That means a lot.
And I stole that from somebody else, but yes.
Okay. We're going to share it out there. Last question here. What tips and strategies do you have for our listeners who might be interested in writing or questioning, should I be an author? Is this the right time? Do I have the right, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that a few things I would say, and if I may refer back to Seth Godin, he has a great blog post, Ivy, 2 blog posts he wrote on this. If you just Google, should I be an author, Seth Godin, long blog post. So one, should you be an author? Yes, I think every business person should consider being an author. 2, consider maybe the first book you do, take your knowledge and be self-published. You can just Google, ask Ivy, there's a billion resources, how to be self-published. 3, do you have a fan base? There's hardly any publishing company at all, no matter how you pay them, they pay you, will market your book for you. You're gonna have to do it yourself. So do you have a tribe? And 4, do you have something to say? It's a rhetorical answer. The answer is yes. But those are the 4 things. Yes, everybody should do it. Consider self-publishing if you're first, you never did it before. You don't have to get a traditional publisher, although it does look good to do it once to say, I've been published. So those are my tips. And I would say, keep listening to Ivy and her community to get more advice on how to do it.
Ramon, thank you so much. I know how busy you always are. Great conference in last November. You'll see me again next November, and I'm sure you and I will see each other many times in between. I think we're supposed to be having a breakfast or a lunch sometime in the near future, in the first quarter.
I believe so.
And listeners, let us know what you think. Let us know if you're about to become an author this year. Okay? Are you working on it? See RamonRay.com. Everything's in the show notes. Feel free to link in with Ramon, myself. Check out other episodes of Her Success Story, and we'll see you next week with another spectacular author.